My name is Daniel, and 6 months ago, I died, or at least I thought I did. One moment, I was laughing with my little brother, a game controller in my hands. The next, I felt a crushing weight in my chest, and everything around me dissolved into nothingness. It wasn't like falling asleep. It was more like being ripped out of reality itself. The world went black, cold, and endless. I could hear the faint echo of voices, panicked, distant, and growing fainter as if I was drifting farther and farther away. Then, suddenly I saw it, my body. I was floating above myself, staring down at the lifeless form slumped on the couch. My little brother was shaking me, his face white with fear, but I couldn't respond. Panic took hold of me, and I screamed, but no sound came. I tried to reach for him, to move, but it was like the air itself had frozen me in place. And then, in the middle of that terrifying silence, he appeared. A light, blinding yet warm, ripped through the darkness, and I felt an overwhelming presence that was both awe-inspiring and utterly commanding. That's when I saw him. Before that day, my life was ordinary, I guess. I was just a regular teenager. I'd wake up late, scarf down a bowl of cereal, and spend most of my day glued to a screen. If I wasn't gaming, I was scrolling through endless feeds, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. The hours blurred together, and I hardly even noticed. Chores? Ignored. Homework? Always saved for last-minute panic mode. I lived for those quick dopamine hits, new memes, high scores, random likes on my posts. It felt good in the moment, but deep down, I think I knew something was missing. My mom, always the worrier, would shake her head whenever she passed my room. "Daniel, you need to focus on what matters," she'd say. She'd drop hints about going to church or picking up a Bible. "It's important to stay grounded," she'd add. But honestly, I thought she was overreacting. I mean, things were fine. Life was fine. Except, looking back now, I realize it wasn't. That night started like so many others. I was lying in bed with my phone, scrolling aimlessly, fighting off the growing heaviness in my chest. I told myself I'd sleep soon, just one more video, one more level. But the later it got, the emptier I felt. I wasn't just tired. I was drained, physically, mentally, spiritually. I just didn't know it yet. It hit me out of nowhere. One second, I was propped up on the couch, aimlessly scrolling through my phone, the glow of the screen washing over the darkened room. The next, it felt like the air had been ripped from my lungs. My chest tightened, my vision blurred, and everything started spinning. I tried to stand, to call out, but before I could move, a wave of darkness crashed over me, pulling me under. It wasn't like falling asleep, it was sharper, colder, suffocating. My senses crumbled, and for a moment I thought, this must be what dying feels like. When I opened my eyes, or at least it felt like I did, I was somewhere else entirely. Or maybe nowhere at all. A cold, endless void surrounded me. It was pitch black, but I could still feel something. The air was heavy, pressing against me, carrying faint, distant sounds, whispers. At first, they were too soft to understand, like echoes of voices far away. But as they grew louder, I could make out the words, and they sent shivers through me. Forgotten. Alone. Too late. The whispers came from every direction, creeping into my mind, mocking me, accusing me. I felt paralyzed, like my thoughts weren't my own anymore. Then I saw it, myself. I was floating, hovering just above the couch. My body was slumped over, still clutching my phone. My little brother burst into the room, his face pale with fear as he shook me, shouting my name. But I couldn't respond. I tried to scream, to reach for him, but it was as if an invisible barrier kept me locked in place, cold and powerless. And then, suddenly, everything shifted. Through the suffocating darkness came a light, blinding and pure, cutting through the void like a sword. It wasn't just bright, it was alive. It wrapped around me, warm and commanding, and every whisper fell silent. The terror, the confusion, all of it melted under this presence. I couldn't see much at first, but I felt it. It was overwhelming, more than just light. It carried love and strength in a way that made me feel smaller, and yet more significant than I ever had before. That's when I realized I wasn't alone. Through the radiant light, a figure stepped forward, not in the way we think of someone walking, but as if his presence simply filled the space. I didn't need anyone to tell me who he was. I just knew. It wasn't his appearance that told me. It was the overwhelming sense of love, power, and authority that surrounded him. His voice was calm, yet it carried weight unlike anything I'd ever heard. "Come," he said, extending his hand. His words weren't a suggestion. They were an invitation I couldn't refuse. The moment I took his hand, everything around me vanished. I was standing in what I can only describe as a vast void, but it wasn't empty. All around me were glowing screens, floating in the darkness, phones, tablets, computers, even VR headsets. At first, it looked like a scene from my daily life, but then I noticed something sinister. The screens weren't just glowing, they were alive, and from each one stretched chains, thick, unbreakable chains that wrapped around the people staring into them. The chains coiled around their arms, their necks, their hearts. I could see their faces, millions of them, but their eyes were hollow, almost lifeless. It was like they were trapped and didn't even realize it. "Do you see?" the figure asked. I nodded, trying to understand, but my heart was already pounding. "What is this?" I asked. "This," he said, gesturing to the scene, "is the enemy's trap. A world so consumed by distraction, pride, and fear that it won't even notice its destruction." As he spoke, the chains around the people glowed brighter, words etched into them like scars. Comparison, anxiety, envy, addiction, lust. Each word burned into my mind, making my stomach churn. I whispered, "Why can't they see it?" His answer sent shivers through me. "Because they don't want to. The enemy's greatest trick is to enslave without them knowing." The screens shifted, now showing images of families yelling at each other, friendships torn apart, and nations crumbling under mistrust and division. It wasn't just technology. It was control, fear, and hatred, pulling everyone further away from what truly mattered. And then I saw him, a figure stepping out of the shadows, draped in power and charisma. He spoke, and the crowds listened, captivated, their chains tightening as he preached. His words were about peace and unity, but I felt the lie in every one of them. This wasn't unity, it was submission. The figure turned to me, his smile ice cold. My heart raced as I felt his gaze pierce through me. I turned to the figure beside me, desperate for answers. "Who is he?" "The deceiver," he said, "the one who will lead many astray. He rises under the guise of unity but brings destruction, and his work has already begun." Suddenly, the screens exploded with fire, consuming everything around us. The screams echoed through the void, but the figure beside me stood firm, his light unwavering. "The choice is still theirs, Daniel, but the time is short. Warn them, for the enemy is conditioning their hearts to worship him without even realizing it." A sense of urgency filled me, like the weight of what I had seen was being placed squarely on my shoulders. The radiant figure looked at me, his eyes filled with both sadness and determination. "Go back," he said. "Tell them, before it's too late." Before I could even respond, the void crumbled, and I was back in my body. But nothing felt the same. I gasped as my eyes flew open, my lungs burning like I hadn't breathed in hours. The room was the same, dimly lit by the faint glow of my phone, still clutched in my hand. But it felt different, almost alien. My chest was heaving, my heart pounding, and tears streamed down my face without warning. The phone in my hand felt heavier now, like I was holding something dangerous, something sinister. I stared at it, horrified, before throwing it across the room. It hit the wall with a dull thud, the glow finally snuffed out. For the first time, I truly felt the silence around me. And in that silence, the weight of everything I had seen crashed down. Regret, shame, and fear tangled together as I thought about all the time I had wasted. The arguments I'd ignored, the warnings I had brushed off. But it wasn't just guilt I felt. It was urgency. I couldn't unsee what I had been shown. The chains, the hollow eyes, the lies. They weren't just about me. They were about all of us. I knelt on the floor right there, shaking. And for the first time in years, I prayed. Not out of habit, not because someone told me to, but because I needed to. I asked for forgiveness, for clarity, for the strength to do what I knew I had to do. And now, I'm here, telling you. This isn't just about me. It's about you. It's about all of us. Look around. What are you chained to? What is pulling you away from what truly matters? I was too distracted to see it before, too lost in my own world. But the truth is, the time is short, and the choice is ours. There's still hope, I know that now. The chains can be broken, the distractions silenced, and the lies revealed. But we have to want it. We have to choose it. So, I'm asking you, no, I'm begging you, to take a moment and reflect. What future are you choosing for yourself, for your family, for your soul? It's not too late. Hope remains, but we have to act. Seek what matters. Hold on to faith. Reconnect with those you love. And above all, don't let the enemy steal what you were created to be. The light is still there, waiting for us to follow. But the choice, that's yours.